With the new season underway, there are a plethora of champions who have shot up in power and who are excelling above all else. So in today's video, we're going to be breaking those champs down, providing you guys with 3 of the best solo carries for every single role. And do you remember when knowing how to set up a freeze in low elo made you special? These days, you're considered a troll if you don't know what a freeze is. Problem is, challengers are so out of touch with the fact that everyone in low elo has improved. So if you ask for help, you just keep getting the same outdated advice. Or even worse, they give you tips that only work in high elo, like how you should sync up your wave crashes with your teammates in multiple lanes to set up invades or objective priority. The theoretically correct play is usually not what actually works in your own elo. Oftentimes, it's something that may seem out of the ordinary, like split pushing as an ADC that will give you way more agency. We teach you the correct way to play League like everyone else does, but also the adaptations that actually work in your elo, so you'll always have multiple great ideas for what to do to win games. We're constantly producing and updating our strategies with players getting better, so SkillCapped is by far the best platform for learning League of Legends. We're so confident that if you don't climb 5 divisions while actively using SkillCapped, you can claim a full refund. Our service has zero risk with the potential to save you tons of time in your climb, so make sure to give us a try. So for our first solo carry top laner of the patch, we're starting things off with Urgot. Urgot has gotten quite a bit stronger for the new season because he's a champion who can skirmish very well in the early to mid game. Urgot has one of the strongest level 1s for any champion in the game when he starts E, and this allows him to exert pressure right from the jump. Urgot works even better for the lower ranks where players are more inexperienced and they won't respect this level 1 power that he has, so you can gain huge advantages early on with Urgot in the lower elos. Right now, it feels like so many games just come down to that 20-minute fight around Otacon, and with Urgot's consistent damage from his passive and W, he can really thrive in those close quarters fights. Urgot matches up very well against most of the meta fighters up in the top lane right now, as he's got well over a 50% win rate against his 10 most common matchups. Since there isn't a specific top lane matchup in meta you need to worry about banning, using your ban on a champ with good disruption who can shut you down in teamfights is a good idea. And right now, Lulu is being played at a very high rate, so she's one of the better options. The core build for Urgot this season consists of a Black Cleaver Rush into Sterix Gauge or Hullbreaker second. Sterix is going to be the better second purchase in most games where you are even or ahead. However, if your team is just super doomed and your only win condition is to split push, then in that case, definitely go Hullbreaker instead of Sterix. For the rune page, you have 2 powerful options right now. Phase Rush has been seeing much more play on Urgot recently, and it's winning more than PTA. This does not mean that press the attack is bad, but you should be running Phase Rush more in certain situations. Into comps that have either a lot of mobility or are heavier range, then going for Phase Rush has really good value. For our second solo carry top laner of the patch, we've got one of the best tanks that you can play right now, being Cho'Gath. Cho'Gath has been on the rise for this season as the added priority put on objectives gives him a really nice boost in power. Cho'Gath's R providing you with the incredible damage against monsters allows him to secure Otacon very easily, which can be a huge game changer for your team. Even though Cho does build full tank, he's a champ who can output a considerable amount of damage due to his low cooldown E, as once you get the spell maxed out, it's only on a 4-second base cooldown. This coupled with the bonus damage proc from Heartsteel, and you can literally one rotation a squishy target in the mid game. Matchup wise for Cho, Mordekaiser is one of his tougher opponents who's being played a lot in meta, so we'd recommend banning him out. Rush item for Cho is Heartsteel, and then it's either Hollow Radiance or Sunfire second into Unending Despair third. Cho'Gath's best rune page consists of Grasp with Demolish, Conditioning, and Overgrowth, followed by Free Boots and Approach Velocity for secondaries. And for our third top lane recommendation of the patch, we round out the role with Warwick. Warwick has been really strong up in the top lane for a while now, but is arguably even better for this new season with the emphasis on feats of strength and Otacon. Warwick is one of the most oppressive top lane champs in the game when he gets ahead because he just runs you down and stat checks you without any counterplay at all. Really mastering Warwick is going to take you a bit longer than someone like Urgot, but if you can understand your limits on the champ, then he's incredibly powerful. For most champs, when they are sitting sub 30% health, that's when they want to be more reserved, but with Warwick, that's when he's at his strongest due to gaining bonus attack speed and sustain when on lower health, and you can really bait enemies into taking bad fights because of this. Matchup wise for Warwick, Teemo is one of the better bans to consider as his blind makes it more difficult to succeed in the 1v1. The core build for Warwick revolves around a Blade of the Rune King Rush into Stridebreaker second. You should be taking lethal tempo for the Keystone Rune with Presence of Mind, Alacrity, and Last Stand, while Second Wind and Revitalize are for secondaries. Making his way into the top 3 for jungle for patch S1.2 is going to be Amumu. Amumu has seen a nice rise in strength this season for a couple of reasons. First is that he's got one of the best team fights for any jungler, so when games are being decided by those 20-minute fights around Otacon, in an even game state, the team with Amumu is going to be way more likely to come out on top. Abyssal Mask changes for this season have also turned out to be extremely positive for Amumu, as the adjustments have made the item even better than before. Bloodletter's Curse is even a great pickup for the champ as well if the enemy team is stacking a bunch of magic resist, as the passive on Bloodletters shreds magic resist. For Amumu's build, Leandries is always the rush item, and from then on out, Bloodletters Predators, Sunfire, and Abyssal are all great pickups. However, the order in which you purchase them will depend on each game. There isn't really a jungler you need to ban out when picking a Mumu right now, so instead banning out Lulu so that your teamfight impact is more reliable is a good idea. For a Mumu's rune page, you should be running Conqueror with Triumph, Haste, and Last Stand, while Cheap Shot and Ultimate Hunter are the best secondaries. A jungler who we predicted would be the strongest pick for all elo brackets in our very first tier list of the season has become just that, and as our second solo carry jungler for S1.2, we have Wukong. Wukong finished off the end of Season 14 in a very powerful state due to getting buffed quite a bit throughout the season, and he's even more powerful in this new season. The raw teamfight power may not be as strong as a Mumu, but the mix of skirmish and teamfight that Wukong has makes him so good for the current meta. Matchups in meta are great for Wukong right now as well, as the only champ you really have to worry about banning is a Mumu. Wukong thrives against the majority of AD junglers, as for example, he's demolishing the Graves matchup, winning over 55% of the time. Those matchups against AP champs aren't as favorable for Wukong, since he doesn't get to abuse his armor stacking passive to its fullest potential. Core build has you rushing Trinity Force and going Sundered Sky second in every single game. You want to pick up Conqueror for the Keystone rune with Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand, while Freeboots and Cosmic Insight are for secondaries. And for our third solo carry jungler of the patch, he's the most highly contested jungler in the game right now, being Viego. Viego is so great for the new season because everyone is fighting more for objectives, and Viego loves the more chaotic skirmishing, as that's where his kit can really thrive. Viego and Wukong, both being Trinity Force users, have really nice spikes to play around, and especially once they get to Sundered Sky, if you can have both items before 20 minutes, your power during that Otacon fight is going to be incredible. These champs like Viego, who just spike really hard in the mid game on 2 items, are thriving right now because whichever team is able to secure Otacon ends up winning out in 78% of games. A really strong 3-item core that you should be prioritizing on Viego right now revolves around Trinity Force, Sundered Sky, and Sterix Gauge. The Lulu ban is going to be what we recommend when picking Viego right now, as her high play rate and ability to shut down Viego in fights makes her worth getting rid of. The best rune page for Viego consists of Conqueror with Triumph, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace, followed by Freeboots and Cosmic Insight for secondaries. With Victor now nerfed for S1.2, a mage that should overtake in priority and who's an S tier pick is Hui. Hui feels really good right now because he's one of the best teamfight mids in the game with all his AoE damage, and it gives him really good impact around objectives. Fighting around Otacon in the mid game is amazing for Hui, as he can heavily sway fights in his team's favor due to being able to land his spells much easier when fighting in the tight areas around Otacon. Hui can struggle more against champs that have lots of mobility, so in terms of who's being picked a lot in meta right now, Katarina is one of his better value bans. The standard core build for Hui revolves around rushing Blackfire Torch and going Liandry's second. You can take Comet or Airy for the Keystone on Hui. Comet is more popular, but Airy actually does have the higher win rate. Against champs with mobility to where Comet landing won't be as reliable is where Airy value will really shine through. Now, one mid lane champ who you should be running Axiom Arcanist on who's very strong right now is Lux. Throughout all elo brackets, Arcanist is winning over 1% more than mana flow on Lux right now, so that's a pretty significant gap. For the complete rune page on Lux, you are able to grab both Arcanist and Ultimate Hunter, and your R is practically on the cooldown of a basic ability once you reach the mid game. If you really want to play for the shortest R cooldown possible, then you can also grab Malignance as your rush item instead of Ludens. Our challenger player Shori showcased this build in his recent full game commentary for Lux that can be found on our website. It's Malignance into Horizon Focus so that your R drops to a 25-second cooldown when you're level 11 and have max Ultimate Hunter stacks. So in a team fight where you are able to get some kills and proc the Arcanist rune, you'll have instances where you're able to get 2 Rs off in an extended fight. It's just a really disgusting setup right now and makes Lux one of the best mid lane mages for this meta, where it feels like there's always a fight going on around an objective. Ban-wise, when picking Lux, Yasuo is always a pretty good option, as his Wind Wall can really shut down a lot of Lux's strength if used correctly. Even with Cassiopeia getting nerfed for this patch, we still see her being one of the best mid laners for solo queue. Riot admittedly overshot with the Cassio buff in S1.1 because they thought she would be worse off than most champs due to not being able to take advantage of the new boots upgrades. Well, turns out the boots upgrades don't matter as much as many initially expected, and the direct buff that Cass got was even more impactful than the boots upgrade. Cassio is extremely powerful for this new season though, because her impact when fighting around objectives is some of the best for any mid laner. An R flash with Cass when the enemy team's taking Otacon can solo win you games. Cassiopeia W also has immense value when fighting around Otacon, because if you are able to control vision beforehand, the choke that the enemy team has to walk through to get to Otacon can be covered entirely by Cass W. The fact that Cassiopeia can also melt objectives very quickly due to her insane consistent DPS makes her really good for this meta. Archangels and Rylai's are 2 staple items on Cass. However, the item that you actually rush really depends on the game and preference. If you're playing against a comp who has quite a lot of burst damage, then going for Rod of Ages rush is good value. Into comps that are not as threatening to one-shot you though, you can actually skip Rod entirely and get to your Rylai's completion quicker. For example, skipping Rod would be good against a comp that has Galio, Darius, and Skarner as the early earlier kiting power from Rylai's will be more valuable than the durability from Rod. Phase Rush and Conqueror are the two keystone options for Cass. Conqueror is the cookie cutter keystone that you really can't go wrong with, but Phase Rush can be good in games where the enemy comp has heavy mobility, so the extra kiting strength from Phase Rush would come in handy. The best ADC in the entire game right now that everyone should be spamming for solo queue is Miss Fortune. When MF is in a powerful spot like she is right now, there's no reason not to play her because she's so simple to play and you'll be able to find success with her almost immediately. Miss Fortune has gained a good chunk of relative power for this new season because she heavily outclasses other ADCs when it comes down to those grouped up 5v5 fights. When a fight breaks out around Otacon, there's really no other ADC that I would rather have on my team than Miss Fortune, as her R can single-handedly win you fights. So that your R hits super hard in the mid-game for those Otacon fights, it's a lethality core that you should prioritize, with a Ghost Blade rush into the Collector second. The best rune page for Miss Fortune consists of First Strike with Cashback, Biscuits, and Jack of all trades, followed by Mana Flow and Gathering Storm for secondaries. Using your ban on a meta champion with long-range dive threat is always a good idea when picking Miss Fortune, so Wukong is a good choice right now. An ADC who's getting indirectly stronger for S1.2 and moving into the top 3 for ADC is Jinx. Even though the Hullbreaker Jinx has been on the rise as of late, with 10% attack speed being added to Yuntal Wild Arrows for this patch, it's going to be too good of an item to pass up on now. Yuntal was actually winning at a near identical rate to Kraken Slayer last patch as Jinx's rush item, so the Yuntal buffs will push it over the top in priority. The core build that you will want to be running for this patch revolves around the Yuntal rush into Infinity Edge second and Hurricane third. Although Jinx may not have the same upfront teamfight impact as Miss Fortune, her AoE damage potential is still really good and has the ability to thrive around those Otacon fights, as her E gains a lot more value being able to control the choke points around the pit. Like Miss Fortune, you want to try and avoid playing into comps that have a ton of heavy dive threat, so banning out Wukong is good value right now. The rune page leading to the best results for Jinx consists of Lethal Tempo with Presence of Mind, Alacrity, and Cutdown, while Freeboots and Biscuits are for secondaries. And for our third solo carry ADC of the patch, you really can't go wrong with Corki right now. We like Corki a lot for this current meta because games are ending a little faster this season, and Corki being an ADC who spikes really hard on one item is going to have a lot more agency over how games play out compared to the majority of ADCs. Corki's skirmish power when he has Trinity Force completed is hard to match for most ADCs, so you can really look to take advantage of that and pressure hard when you have the item. The standard core build for Corki has you rushing Trinity, going Manamune second, and then Rapid Fire Cannon third. Ban-wise, when picking Corki, getting rid of Caitlyn is never a bad idea, as her longer range can be more difficult to play around in lane. For the rune page, look to pick up Conqueror with Presence of Mind, Alacrity, and Cutdown, followed by Biscuits and Jack of all trades for secondaries. A support who's gotten much stronger for the new season and kicking off the top 3 for the role is Maokai. Where Maokai really shines is in those team fights due to all the CC he can provide, and with heavier emphasis on fighting around objectives for this season, the champ is a phenomenal pickup. We like Maokai as that premier teamfight melee support because he's just so much simpler to execute than many other picks. R is quite easy to land when fighting around objectives because of its large width, while W is point and click, so there's no skill involved in using it. The best rush item for Maokai is Trailblazer, and then you go into Locket as your second pickup. As for Maokai's item upgrades, Celestial and Solstice Slay are both viable. Into an enemy comp that has a lot of upfront burst damage is where Celestial will gain more relative power. Morgana or Lulu are two solid ban choices when picking Mao, as they can both do a good job at countering your engaged threat. For the rune page, look to roll with Aftershock, followed by Font of Life, Bone Plating, and Unflinching, while Biscuits and Cosmic Insight are for secondaries. In terms of a solo carry from the Enchanter class right now, Nami is absolutely top tier. Nami has a lot more early to mid-game skirmishing capabilities compared to most other enchanters, which bodes really well for the current meta. Once you get your Imperial Mandate completed, the all-in power in the 2v2 becomes really strong, and you can look to force fights much better than many other enchanters. The long-range engage power that Nami has with her R is something that sets her apart from alternatives like Soraka, Janna, and Lulu. Dreammaker is the best item upgrade for Nami, and then after you build Mandate, it's pretty situational. Nami can struggle more against champs with snap engage capabilities, so using your ban on Maokai or Blitzcrank is good value. The standard rune page for Nami consists of Airy with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Scorch, followed by Bone Plating and Revitalize for secondaries. Other than Maokai, another really strong melee support who has incredible teamfight impact that you should consider picking up is Rel. Rel is actually the most played support in the entire game right now in Diamond and above, while she's very powerful for the lower ranks too, but just doesn't quite see as much play. Rel is really strong for this meta for many of the same reasons as Maokai, as her kit functions very well in straight up 5v5 fights. It's even better when you're fighting around those tight corridors of Otacon because the AoE potential from Rel is amazing, and she can completely solo carry a team fight by getting a multi-man chain CC combo off. An interesting adaptation that many high elo Rel players have been making as of late is running Bloodsong for their item upgrade instead of Celestial Opposition. You get a little more damage by going Bloodsong, and with Rel being a support who wants to engage and look for picks, that added damage helps to finish off kills and makes your all-in power a bit stronger. Bloodsong combined with rushing Zeke's makes your all-in power extremely deadly. Poppy is a high priority ban that you should have when picking Rel, as Poppy W does a good job at halting your engage power. For Rel's rune page, look to pick up Aftershock with Shield Bash, Bone Plating, and Overgrowth, while Hex Flash and Cosmic Insight are the best secondaries. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So that's gonna wrap everything up for the S1.2 update on the best solo carries. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.